Good day, everyone. Welcome to ELLT 603 English Teaching Approaches. This is teacher Irene, and today I am tasked to talk about competency based language teaching in Singapore. As we all know, change is a fact of life, it is irresistible, and education is an integral part of these broader currents of society and change. In fact, as an international and cosmopolitan city, Singapore is not immune to educational changes. Singapore looks for change and wants to change. Like many other governments throughout the world, Singapore have been regularly reforming the school system to increase educational standards so as to ensure that more young learners or young people can have the appropriate knowledge and skills that would be useful in their future endeavors. In examining how the English language was taught in Singapore, there are two broad periods that can be widely discerned. First is from 1959 to 1984. Second, 1985 to the present. The first period may be further subdivided into two, from 1959 to 1970 and from 1971 to 1985. Let's talk first on the periods of 1959 to 1970. There are four official languages recognized in this period that were English, Tamil, Mandarin, and Malay. This is in view of its multi-ethnic and multicultural population. And the teaching in the 1950s were influenced by the classical tradition, which emphasized the written text. And also, oral work was emphasized, and the favorite teaching technique was drilling and repetition. The teaching of language was highly structured. Repetition and drill practice is utilized in the teaching of grammar, syntax, reading, and writing were also the norms in this period. From 1971 to 1985, it was a period where bilingualism meant the learning of English as well as one another official language. However, the 1971 English language syllabus was continued and not changed from its structuralist orientation. What was changed was that more effort was put in the refining of structuralist methodology. It was in this period when the Ministry of Education began building language laboratories in schools and in junior colleges. In the primary schools also, there were series of flashcards and basal readers were adapted to teach pupils how to read words and sentences. The first English book produced by CDIS was produced in 1981 in line with the syllabus which continued the structuralist orientation. The next 25 years, from 1985 to present. Besides the fact that 1985 marks the end of 25 years since the evolution of Singapore from a British colony, that year is also significant because it saw the introduction of REAP, or Reading and English Acquisition Program, the inception of communicative language teaching, or CLT, in the different schools, as well as the introduction of process writing in schools. More importantly, this period also saw the teaching of English as first language in all schools in Singapore. The communicative language movement influenced the implementation of ACT, or active communicative teaching, from the mid 80s in the Singapore schools. It emphasized both the importance of language acquisition and the learner's immersion to the stimulating environment in which the target language was used. And also, in the year 1983, the publication of CLUE, known as Course in Learning and Using English for Secondary Schools. And here, language was taught as a means of communication in a meaningful context. And the integrated approach in teaching that stressed the four skills were evident in this period. In 1985, REAP, or Reading and English Acquisition Program, was implemented in 30 schools in Singapore, with more schools joining in the program subsequently. It emphasized on the importance of language acquisition, and again, it also encouraged the learners to be immersed in the stimulating environment wherein the target language is used. The teaching of reading was integrated with writing, listening, and speaking activities. REAP, or Reading and English Acquisition Program, introduced the following features in English language teaching. First, SBA, or Shared Book Approach, introduced beginning readers to an enjoyable experience with books. Here, the teachers used big books with enlarged text and pictures to read aloud to their pupils and taught them beginning reading skills. Second one is LEA, Learning Experience Approach, worked on the principle that all children have experiences which they enjoy sharing, and these experiences could be thought about, talked about, written down, read and reread. The third one is CDS, Class Dictated Story. Here, pupils engaged in joint writing with the teacher. And now let's move on to the 1991 syllabus. This syllabus may be considered as highly innovative in relation to its predecessor syllabuses. For one, because it was much less prescriptive and structured than the ones before it. So it is considered as true to the communicative and functional spirit, wherein it allows the teachers to select from several inventorists and lists of language skills, communicative functions, grammar items, and tasks and activities in the various chapters of the syllabus. It emphasized fluency rather than accuracy, and function rather than form. Language is viewed as a system of meaning making. It was also the first syllabus in Singapore to view teachers as facilitators rather than purely knowledge givers. The central innovation here may be said to be that of integration. This integration was achieved by having sequences of lessons built around themes. So teachers would then be preparing integrated sequences of lessons based on particular themes. Then group work was emphasized, and students were encouraged to work together to achieve common goals. There were more creative types of activities that the syllabus encouraged, such as the use of drama, role play, storytelling, poetry, songs, and even games as a means of inspiring students to express themselves while enabling them to acquire language skills indirectly. Change was also evident in the teaching of grammar. The direct teaching of grammar was discouraged, in line with the belief that the pupil's assimilation of language is more effectively conveyed through the context. In here, the teacher was viewed as the facilitator of the language acquisition rather than a repository of knowledge. In addition, PETS or Primary English Thematic Series introduced these three novel principles. Number one, an integrated approach. This means that each thematic unit would include oral interaction, reading comprehension, writing, and other language skills. Second, context. Meaningful context was created by organizing language materials through themes. And the third one is audio-visual aids. These are extensively used, and it was also a great variety that can offer to teaching English language. We are down now to the 2001 English language syllabus. So the current 2001 syllabus did not represent a significant change from the 1991 syllabus. It has changed from a communicative syllabus to a language use syllabus. This is more superficial than real. Reflecting on this change of mood, the 2001 syllabus puts a clear emphasis not just on fluency, but also on accuracy. And explicit teaching of grammar once again had a place. For most of the primary and secondary textbooks published in 2001 have reintroduced form and structures of grammar. Moreover, grammar was taught in context through text types. All the language textbooks for primary and secondary schools include tasks and mini projects which require students to work together while learning the four language skills. And for the writing pedagogy, process writing continues to have a place. Point to remember. While innovative changes have been organized under specific periods, it should be noted that in real life, the switch is not instantaneous, as one is likely to assume, since there is often a merging of the old and new approaches before the later approach gains ascendancy. To summarize, our first period, 1959 to 1985, saw a language pedagogy heavily influenced by structuralists. The second period of study from 1985 saw the rise of communicative language methodology and a move towards a thematic and integrated approach. The movement from the communicative syllabus in 1991 to a more moderate syllabus incorporating both communicative and structural components in 2001 indicates a realization that communicative methods may not be suitable at all times. Thus, this paved the way of explicit teaching of grammar in the 2001 syllabus. English language teaching, or ELT, has undergone significant changes in each period under study in Singapore's history. It would be fair to say that in Singapore's future history, there will continue be changes as long as there will be language teaching development in the places elsewhere in the world. Thus, teachers in Singapore and elsewhere should be aware of this wider perspective before making their daily informed pedagogical decisions made on the real life needs of their students. I believe that would be all for today. Thank you, and I hope you learned something.